Welcome to the Lesbian Chronicles, where we are super pumped to have Dr. Lorri Sulpizio with us again. Thank you so much for being willing to come back, Dr. Lorri.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it feels like even in that time period, we've had a million relationship things come up. And so
We're busy women over here, you know.
Busy women. This feels like a good time. How have you been?
I've been well. It's like it's kind of the end of that academic year right now, and so just kind of the excitement for summer and warmer weather coming. I think it's good. Everyone on my side here is excited.
Yeah. Now, will your kids be home this summer?
Yeah. So my football player on the East Coast will come home for a little bit, then he's got to go back.
Okay.
He'll be back. We're going on a big family vacation to Italy, so it's super exciting.
Nice.
All I have the only daughter, but all the nephews. So there's 9 grandkids. My sisters, my parents, we're all going to Italy. It aligned because the kids are getting older, so it's harder to schedule with them. But so everyone's really looking forward to this trip.
It's very White Lotus of you guys. The Italy adventure.
Right? You need a reality show to follow you.
Oh, seriously. My goodness. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll stream something. We'll see.
I
Yeah.
like it. Well, let's dive in because we know we don't have you too long. So we have a few topics that we want to get into. I guess, Melissa, do you want to introduce the first one?
Yeah, well, the one that I was really kind of thinking about recently is that trusting your own intuition. I think really just as we get older and especially with how like therapized we've all become, it becomes this like battle between your brain, your heart, and your gut. And really, I think most of the time my gut is correct in the situations, but I don't trust it, and I think I went my whole life without doing therapy up until my late 30s. And so it's become like, now I have like these words to therapize what I'm feeling, but then I'm having a hard time carrying out what needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think, part of it is, well, our intuition is a great thing. And I think we sometimes need to listen to it. I think what maybe has happened though, is that because of therapy speak is everywhere, and we've got all this information that now, like, we second guess ourselves. We're wondering, is this narcissistic behavior? Is this codependent behavior? Is this passive aggressive? Am I being gaslit? It's like, oh my gosh.
Yes. Right? All of the above.
And not to dismiss those behaviors. I mean, they are real, they're problematic, but I think we've amplified some of the tendencies and projected them onto people. And now we're almost hyper suspicious. Every little thing isn't gaslighting. Every little kind of selfish choice isn't narcissistic behavior. I mean, it's like, I think we need to relax a little bit in terms of all the second guessing. But then also there's a way of checking our own story and our own sort of meaning making with what's driving our intuition. And what I mean by that is, do we have a realistic sense of relationship, of ourself, of the other person? Like, are we basing this intuition and the trust on kind of accuracy or on, what's real, or has it become kind of a fantasy for what we hope to have?
Right. Yeah. Like, how do you do that? Like, that sometimes feels hard because it's like, even with one person, I will in one moment feel like the data is telling me all this positive, great stuff. And then it's like one thing happens and I'm like, oh, nope, there we go again. Like, the data is contradicting what I thought. And then that snowballs into my new reality.
Yeah. But so I wonder though, is that really intuition? Because I would say your intuition or your inner knowing is almost more energetic. It's like this kind of, you enter a space and you immediately know, like, oh, we connect. Like, I just feel it, whether it's romantic or platonic, just this is a good person. This is a person I could hang out with. I like their energy, and then there might be somebody that you meet and you're just like, spidey sense is just telling me there's just something about them. To me, that's that kind of energetic inner knowing. Some of the things I think what you're describing is where kind of the cognitive, I mean, this is where our cognitions are maybe taking over, the thoughts that we're having about one thing goes wrong. That means the whole thing is going to become a disaster. They do one little thing, they don't call me back. They look a little anxious. They're a little avoidant. Oh my gosh, they're always going to be insecure and come at me. Or, oh my gosh, they're going to withdraw every time it's hard. That may not be true, right? So part of it, I
Right.
think, is checking our thoughts when we have one of those moments and wonder, what are we thinking about this situation? And are we spinning it out into something that it really may not even be?
Yeah, it's a good point. I like what you said about the energy because it is true. Like if you're just like walk into a dinner party, I've had situations, Melissa's usually with me, where I've walked in and said, we went to a brunch together. This wasn't even that long ago. I walked out of the brunch. I looked at her and said, that was fucking awful. My nervous system is wrecked. Like,
Yes.
I can't sit with the, like, that was so bad for me. Like, I did
Right.
not enjoy that. And she was kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was a little off for me too. And then I've had other situations where we've had something happen and I'm like, that was a blast. Like, I
Mhm.
felt myself. I felt, you're right. Like, I don't know that we've paid, I go to my head. What are the facts? What are the facts versus like, what's
How do I
inside
feel?
me? Yeah.
Yeah. And even interesting, like, what are the facts? It's so funny because when I work with couples, they'll have a very different set of facts
Yeah.
for the same
Yeah.
situation, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
part of it is like, of course, there's the time of day that it happened. Where were we? What was said? I mean, so there could be some facts, right? But then we fill in the blanks, which is, well, you were being flirty. It's like, well, is that a fact or is that an opinion about an interpretation for how somebody sees somebody's behavior, right? So I think part of it is even thinking in our head, we think it's facts, but we're filling in the blanks with our own experience, our own interpretation of the situation, and then we're making meaning of that. And if our tendency is to make meaning like from a scarcity model or a fear-based model, we're immediately going to run and say, oh, this is catastrophic. This is going to be terrible. Oh, I knew this all along, right?
Hmm.
And we're thinking it's the gut, but like maybe it's not. Maybe it's our thoughts run wild, you know?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
so interesting because that's something I learned like in the last like year or two of like really because I would look at things like a situation where it's like from my perspective and my perspective only and not really
Mhm.
considering like how could my person feel XYZ way about this? Like that was just, that wasn't a big deal. Not really taking a step back and being like, oh, but like this is how they felt. And they're trying to tell me that, but I
Hmm.
can only see like my viewpoint on it. And it's
Yeah.
so hard to like kind of step out, step back and like really interpret and feel how they were feeling.
For sure. And to recognize, like, when we talk about kind of later in life or older lesbians or being later and older in relationship, having a new relationship, we're bringing everything with us, decades of stuff. So that
Mm.
one moment, and you might be thinking, how can you feel this way about that? Like, that was not a big deal. And for them, without even knowing it, well, that was every moment where somebody didn't pay attention to me,
Yeah.
or I didn't get the love that I wanted. And so it's so much more than just that moment often, but we get so caught up in the details of the present moment and what it means for us that we don't realize that actually the person is just stuck in a feeling of pain from this situation, but really ignited a whole lot of other feelings from the past. And if we could have that kind of empathy, then we'd be able to connect so much, more deeply with each other and with a lot of patience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think it is like complicated. Like I had a situation recently where it's like to your point, when you come up and you're now later in life, you've got all these sets of circumstances, whether it's an ex-husband, children,
Mm-hmm.
friendships, and then you're in a relationship and maybe the person that you're in the relationship feels really wronged in some way, but it's like you're grasping for, but all these other things that I had to do are also true.
Right.
Versus like when you're 25 and falling in love, there's nobody else pulling at me.
Yeah.
Versus now it's like all these things you're balancing. You can look like a real jerk even when you're just honoring this other set of things
Right.
that you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. And then my imagining is that person who kind of is looking like a jerk is feeling like, but I'm doing so much. Don't you
Yes.
see all that I'm doing? Right? I'm here,
Yes.
here, and here. I'm spread so
Yes.
thin. Right? And that's part of the
Yes.
reality. And that's where we need to, be open and honest with each other, but also have the space, and latitude kind of in that relationship to say, okay, so you do have your kids and your job and you're taking care of your elderly parent and you got to manage your ex and that relationship and all the things, but I would really love more time with you. Like I'm feeling missed. I don't feel like I'm, the second most important thing or equal important with your kids or whatever. Like I would love to feel like I'm more important to you. And like if we could get to the need underneath some of those sort of superficial conflicts, we can resolve and realize we're actually just saying we want each other more. We want to love each
Yeah.
other more. We want the space to be together more. It comes from a place of tenderness and love, but we don't hear it because we're stuck in the tension and the friction.
It's
Yeah.
true. And then it's like everything files into that. There it goes again. Like
Yep.
now this other thing happened. It just
Yep.
snowballs.
Yep. Here's that narrative. This is it. Right.
Right. Right.
Yep.
And I think oftentimes, like if I start to feel like, or if I guess too, like I'm so through all these years, you become so, I don't want to say prideful, but like your ego does, if you don't feel reassured, I start to just be like, oh, then I'm not going to try. And then it's like a harder thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in those cases, it's like one person isn't feeling reassured and isn't feeling seen, right? And isn't feeling met. But then the other person is also over there not feeling reassured and not feeling met. And that ends up being like it's, as you said, it's so complicated and nuanced because we get in these situations where both people are saying the same thing. I don't feel seen. I feel dismissed. It comes down to these sort of core ideas, but it manifests as you're not doing enough for me. You're always so needy. You don't understand all that I have going on in my life. Well, why don't you pay attention to me the way you pay attention to your work? Why don't you see I'm trying to work so we can go on vacation? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
Right.
both you're actually advocating for the relationship, but doing it differently. But then the other person can't see that because they're stuck in their own deficit. And then it's like,
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's
Yeah.
so true. Like, and I think, kind of what Allie was saying about like, we just have such busier lives than we did in our 20s. So it's like
Yeah.
dating is just so much different now.
yep,
Like, if I were to try to go on a date now, I'm like, I can maybe plan for it in like 3 weeks, like, and
right,
it's like, that it makes me seem like I'm not ready and available or whatever, but it's like, no, like I've got like all these other priorities
yep,
that really matter a lot to me. But we've also, Allie and I have talked about, like decentering the relationship aspect in our lives. And I think that really helps kind of almost bring like a calmness to me to be like, you know what, that's not my priority right now. And that's okay. I want to focus on career and friendships and these,
Children.
yeah, my kids are,
Yeah.
clock is ticking. My son's about to graduate from 5th grade. Like
yeah,
all those things.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I think, and for women especially, whether you're in a queer relationship, hetero relationship, it's really shifted as we've leaned into career. And we've
Yeah.
realized that we can have a career and still mother in a badass and effective way with or without a partner in many cases. And I know there's a piece of privilege to that, right? I mean, not everybody can do that so easily, and not that even it's easy in any case. But there's this now change in the narrative for women where it's like, yeah, you can be a single and professional mom, a single mom who's a professional, and you don't have to have a partner, and we don't have to be defined by our relationship anymore. So it kind of opens up possibilities for relationships not to be because there's a have to, like it maybe used to be, in our kind of for the boomers, it's like you had to have that kind of relationship, but it's
Yeah.
want to. And so I think that also it's like, look, if you don't check these boxes for me, like I don't need you. So in
Right.
many ways, I think it is really great for the individual woman to be like, okay, I can focus on my kids and my career and my friendships and I'm good. I'm fulfilled. On the other hand, it might put this bar for the relationships like a little bit high where now we're like, look, I do not need you in my life. I got enough.
Yeah.
So it could put an interesting stress on the relationship from that standpoint.
I have actually even heard some of our friends verbalize, if you're not bringing X, Y, and Z, I don't need you at all because I'm happy on my own. And I'm thinking like, I'm not lonely and I am happy on my own, but I still do want a partner. I want to get
Yeah.
married. I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it brings something to our lives.
Yeah.
To find that right companion it really does bring a lot of benefit to our lives in a fun way. I think the key is being able to kind of negotiate and or be clear about, what is important to us and how do we want to set up sort of our independent self and not lose the me as we co-construct the we, because that's a really delicate balance, especially for those of us that are also mothers, also have professional careers, and want to be able to show up and be a good partner.
Yeah.
And it does blend. We talk about that too. Like women, it's like if you're dating someone, they sort of automatically start to fall into your community.
Mhm.
And then it is like you sort of do lose the me sometimes because it becomes so blurred. Whereas when
Yeah.
you're with men, there's this natural buffer
Yeah.
that kind of keeps them at bay. Like, how do women, like, do you have recommendations for that? Like, how you maintain some sovereignty?
Yeah, I think understanding the friendship piece, it's an interesting one because again, the our lovers are the same people that are our friends. And so it does blur the lines and can make it difficult. And then when you find a partner, you're super excited to go out with all of your friends, a bunch of women friends, like, let's do this. This is so fun. And so you often then bring your partner along with your friendships, right? So then the partner and which is great in the beginning, until then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I just want some independent time. And so I think it is really important to think about what are your individual hobbies that you like to do by yourself? Who are the people, what relationships are just yours that you get to sit and talk about your life and your partner for that matter, and know that they can hear you and still love her and still love you, but you get a little bit of that separation. I think having individual hobbies, having individual time is really important, and it preserves the relationship. It's not because the relationship is bad. It actually is going to preserve the longevity of the relationship if we keep our sense of self and then also really contribute and bring that strong self to the partnership.
Yeah. And I think that's something like a lot of people don't really even realize that they're doing, like the enmeshment that happens so quickly.
Yep.
And it's, next thing you know, it's a year down the line, and you're like, hold on, like I realize I haven't done anything just like myself or with my friends without you. And
Yeah.
then it's like, it feels like this dig to be like, now I want to
Yeah.
spend time alone.
You
Yep.
can't come.
Yeah, now you can't come.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So again, those individual relationships that you have before the relationship, certainly, but you want to integrate, but go out every other week, or go on a hike, just your friends, go on a hike with just your siblings, your family, your coworkers, or go to that work function that is the fun, whatever it might be. Do those things alone. It also then sets up the excitement to then do something together, right? Where
Right.
like, okay, then we get excited to do something together, not like, oh, here we go, same old, same old, we're doing the same
Yeah.
thing. It
Exactly.
creates that excitement to see each other again and maybe plan something unique and fun for the couple, because you've got these unique and fun things as an individual as well.
It
Yeah.
is interesting when you first get in a relationship. I see this in our friend group. It's like you want that partner. Like what I've noticed is it's almost like you need the friend group to like witness your new
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Like you can't wait to be out with this person. And then you're not really with your friends at all. You're just heavily focused on that person, but you're still out with the group.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do feel like there is a sense at the beginning of a relationship to like have it witnessed, or like it's like you have to
Yeah.
explode on the scene with this person.
Everybody look at how cute we are.
Look how cute we are. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess maybe there's a part in that, in feeling a lot of pride, and
Yeah.
wanting and hopefully healthy pride in wanting to sort of be in a good partnership and be able to share this love, with everybody. Like, look at us, or look at
Right.
me in this relationship. I think um, there is obviously the shadow side of that, which is
Right.
then, is this relationship kind of more of a performative thing, somehow fulfilling a part of you, that really
Hmm.
is the relationships to fill, right? So a
Like that,
sense
that you haven't been seen and now
yeah,
you need to be seen.
I'm only worthy, when I have a relationship, or everybody else is partnered up and having kids, and I'm saying, so I want to have that partner because I feel like that will help me fit with the group, right? So I think
Interesting.
there could be a way that we would want to be cautious about, so that desire to show each other off and to announce the relationship to the world, if it's somehow coming from a place of your own sort of sense of lack. Um,
Yeah. I think that's interesting. We talked about a couple weeks ago on the show about how also like women and men, like when I was married, I would not have been out like having drinks, say, with my husband's friends. Like there
Hmm.
was just this natural thing. And Melissa and I were talking about it. Melissa actually was saying how it's so normal to like go out and have drinks with women and I can be in a relationship. But then I posed to her, your ex-husband's a pilot. What would you have said if he would have called you and said, I met this really cool flight attendant. We have flying in common, and I'm going to meet her for drinks when we land in Lexington. Is that cool with you? And it's like immediately, hell no, that's not cool with me. You're not going to go hang out with this flight attendant. But with women, it is like this accepted practice
Hmm.
to just be friends with everyone. And it can be kind of a slippery, you're getting more familiar. And then you're like, wow, I do kind of like this person. I feel good around this person. How do you see that? Like how, like relationships, women can be jealous. They can be, and have affairs, quite honestly. Like
For
things
sure.
just develop.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you think
I
about
think
that?
at the core of that, I think is our um, understanding of whether it's partially true, partially false of sort of sexuality and the differences in males and females in terms of how they relate to, orient, and think about sex. So the stereotype, whether it's stereotyped or not, or true or not, is that men they're always thinking about sex, and that when if they want to kind of connect with a woman, it's likely sexual in nature, that it's very difficult. And you have men say this, right? Some men will say, yeah, we're not friends with women. I mean, what I mean? Like maybe
Yeah,
that one, sister's friend from years and years ago, but typically like we don't want to be friends with a woman. If
it's
we're
true.
hanging out with a woman, it's for one thing. So that skews it if that's the true, right? We've got this kind of picture in the mind that for men, they're
Mm,
always thinking about sex. We don't totally think that about women.
that's so
Now, if we
true.
for those of us that remember the OGL word, like Shane changed that. I mean, right? So
Yeah,
the character
yeah.
of Shane was like sex, 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 and more sex, and even to the point of others, like she was that kind of archetype of kind of embodying sort of this masculine way of just sleeping around all over. But we associate that with men. We don't associate that with women. And I think part of
So
that is maybe
true.
gender norms in the beginning. And as women have become more free sexually and marriage has kind of shifted, the concept of marriage, maybe we're like, yeah, look, we like sex just the same, and we certainly could have affairs, and we certainly could be attracted to it, especially if it were lesbians, we would be attracted to another woman. So I think the underlying gender piece and stereotypes is at play there. And we do need to think about, yeah, is it cool for you to go out on, you're doing a podcast on the road somewhere and you meet somebody who's cool and you want to go have a drink, you don't know what her intentions are, but you're married. I mean, like, is that okay?
Is
Yeah.
it like, let's say you're married and you're out on the road for a tour for your show.
Mhm.
Would you go have drinks in another city with someone that you had something in common with?
So I think I
I
would
don't know
be
if you're
very,
married or not, but
yeah, I would be very
hypothetically.
attuned to the intuition. I mean, right? So if it was a business relationship, if it was you gals and it's like, yeah, let's talk about what we could do together with this podcast, maybe a
Hmm.
series or maybe this, and I'd love to have you on and we want to write something, like, then yeah, then I'm thinking this is, something that could be really great. Or we've worked together in the past and we know the relationship, it's very kind of, platonic. And if I trust myself there, then yeah, I would totally go have drinks with either of you too, right? But I
Yeah.
think if I have the sense of either myself or the other person, especially the other person, because my hope was that myself, I'm going to be sort of loyal and committed, which I would be. But if I get a sense that there's anything unclean with the other, then I think that's on me to say, you know what, no, thank you. I'm going to actually head back to my room and just, I've got an early flight in the morning. Because again, with our intuition, we can tell if there's a little bit of a spark or a little bit of energy. We know if we're walking into a dangerous situation. And so
Yeah.
why do that? I mean, why do that to yourself? Why do that to, you know what I mean? Why put
Right.
yourself in a situation where your gut's like, ooh, this, I know that they're not just wanting to talk about business, or this isn't just a friendly, hey, we have a lot in common. And I think that's dangerous. I'm just going to say no to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you really put into words what I was trying to say a couple of weeks ago when we talked
Yeah.
about this conversation, is that I trust myself. I know what
Hmm.
my intentions are.
Right.
And then on top of that, I'm like, well, I am like looking for opportunities, you know, and this conversation might really advance what I'm working on, and we can work
Mm-hmm.
together on this.
True.
You know, I know what my objective is.
Right.
So, but I think a lot of it also takes that conversation with the person that you're in a relationship with, of saying that, you know, like, this
Yeah.
is where this stems from. This is why I want to do this. And if something does go awry, I'm going to shut it down.
Absolutely. And recognize, I mean, this is where I think I got a lot of little pushback when I talked about kind of acknowledging somebody's insecurity, is that if you know you have a partner who maybe was cheated on in the past, or was with men in the past, and that's their understanding of their partner, is that they're always looking for sex with whoever is, you know, walking and near them, then I think we need to be sensitive and attentive to that, and be extra clear with our partner to say, like you said, Melissa, this is just a business meeting, or hey, I'll text you, you know, the minute I'm done, and maybe we can jump on a FaceTime when I'm back in my room, just for them to get that sense of security. Because, you know, we could resist and say, well, they need to just trust me. Well, sure they do. But if you're new in the relationship, if there's been any kind of, you know, questionable behavior in the past, if they've got trust issues, like, why not just say, hey, I'm doing this really great person, I think you're going to really like her, I hope you meet her one day, I'll text you right when I get back to my room, and make sure that she's okay with it and comfortable too. I don't think that is giving too much, and, oh, well, that, you know, you need to be strong and do what you want to do. Like, okay, and then you can be single. You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we can honor our partner's insecurities while we're building trust, while we're nurturing, you know, the strength of the relationship. And even 15 years in, there might be something where it's just, yeah, this one person makes me a little insecure. And what they're saying is, I love you, I don't want to lose you.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying, not I want to control you and you don't get to have any fun. You know, we interpret the message to mean it's, oh, they're trying to control me, I'm going to do what I want to do. Yeah, go do what you want to do, but honor the person that's supposed to be, like, you know, your other half, the person you love the most, and help them feel comfortable in that situation as well.
I think that too is like when people are first coming out. I remember my first long term lesbian relationship. We, at the very beginning, everything was new. I was insecure. I'd blown up my life. I'm scared to death. I'm doing everything for the first time. And I remember feeling insecure. And I remember my partner like saying to her friends, kind of like, I need to meet Allie where Allie is right now. This is where she is. And I appreciated that so much. It just like, you know, she was like, if it looks like she's controlling me, she's not. I'm meeting her at this insecure phase.
Yeah, that's so
And
great. Yeah,
it was great. And I remember that like freed me up to not feel insecure.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
It is really interesting too, like kind of circling back to like men being seen as these like super like sexually charged creatures.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've really realized through having this podcast, and like um, the men that we've heard from, is that there are a lot of men out there that are not, that's not their objective. Like, they love being married, they love being in a relationship, and they're not looking to go run around in these streets, you know? Um, so it is kind of like, I guess, one of those just,
Tropes.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think it depends. I mean, again, we're talking really kind of binary stereotypes in terms of somebody might then say, well, okay, but then what does that happily married man need to do having drinks with the woman? Like, what are they having in common with? Now, you know, again, I'm a lesbian, so there's no threat if I go hang out with a man, but sports is my world. So one of the things that I was able to do early on, kind of in my, you know, business setting, and with men, is talk sports. Like, I would know who the quarterback was just drafted, and what's happening in, you know, the NBA, all these things. And it was a source of connection. And then it was fun. And we could go down and have a drink and let's talk about what, you know, the most recent sport thing. But I think part of it is there that natural connection, you know, and maybe somebody's wife would be like, well, what are you connecting with her for? Right? Like, what do you have
Yeah.
in common with her? What is it that, you know, go have drinks with the guys. Why do you need to
Yeah.
have drinks with this woman? So again, it's that heterosexual dynamic that has so many layers to it, around power, around stereotypes, around what we have access to, and how we get to show up, what's supposed to be important to us. And it really does create that divide.
yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is the feeling of like when you first get into a relationship, you're in that kind of limerence, excited phase. But then many times we see people have a stage of like you dive in and then all of a sudden you become shockingly avoidant, almost like a flip switches where you're like, your body almost says like, oh my God, this was so fast. And now this person is like counting on me to text them every morning. And do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a very intense honeymoon phase, that limerence phase. And part of it, I think, is that for some people still, for some couples still, they can't be out, and so
Yeah.
they can't be out and about. So they do then build their relationship kind of in the privacy of their own home or their friend's home. And so there does create almost like this, a little bit of like an insulated, incubator to nurture the relationship just in this small space, as opposed to being able to take it more casually and go out here and go out there and hold hands and kiss and even, a little bit passionately in public in the park, where not everybody's comfortable doing that. So I think we then have this like really intimate container where that intimacy grows really fast. And, it is amazing to fall in love. That
Hmm.
initial passion and excitement is like one of those sort of unique, amazing feelings. And so it can be very absorbing. But then life settles. And when we talk about being in, your 40s or early 50s, like then your life is full, like we've said. So it's not like you're 22 and like, oh, I got to go back and maybe study for grad school, or to my job, I got no kids, So this is like, oh my gosh, now life pulls me back. And all of a
Right.
sudden, I've got this intensity here for this relationship that maybe started off good, but now I'm like, yikes, I've got to go back and put my attention here. And I want to, I've got good things over here. And so now you
Right.
have this kind of split and pull. And the other person may be like, well, where'd you go? And
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on, because they may not be in the same place, or the two of you go opposite and go back to life. And then there's fear like, oh, wait a minute, did we lose the connection? What happened here? And I think it's really reflective of the pace with which we move. We move so fast.
That kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of the long distance thing. Like we're hearing, like we had a matchmaker on who talked about how like long distance for lesbians is so common because maybe there's less, options, and so you end up dating someone long distance. Do you see that in your practice a bit with gay
Yeah.
women?
I see a lot of long distance relationships because they're hard, they're
Yeah.
really, really hard. And so, how do we negotiate kind of the boundaries of that and find, kind of ways to define the relationship in positive and connected ways? I think there's also kind of a benefit, in that it makes you go slower, and it makes you kind of really nurture a connection and get to know each other and keep your own life, because there's no option to move in after 1 week. There's no option to spend, all but one night in her place for a month because you don't live there, right? So I
Yeah.
think there's some benefits to it, but distance relationships are tough because there is that kind of physical connection that brings so much to our nervous system and,
Right.
that physical part. So I think it can be nice because of the pacing, but it can definitely present its challenges. But I think I know the woman that you're talking about, who's the matchmaker.
Yeah.
I think I saw that episode, which was a great one. And it's true that many people feel like they don't have options in their town or in their city.
Yeah.
So they want to look elsewhere and they meet somebody. And then it's like, okay, now what do we do?
Right. I mean, I think it is hard, and I've seen friends do it, but I think in the, like, I don't know, like if you could create a situation that it could, like if you had an established, we're going to see each other this predictable number of times and you can get FaceTiming, I don't know. Like it feels like if you met someone, like there are ways to do it, but I could
Oh,
see
for
where there
sure.
would be more challenges, but also it does free you up in some ways because you can keep up your community
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. And I think it really depends, again, when we were talking about at the beginning about how to just define the relationship, is being clear about what do you want in a relationship, if you also have kids and a career, like maybe you don't want or need somebody to be your, end all be all every day, everything, but you do want somebody to be your travel companion and to talk about things at the, a couple times a week or at the end of each day. And you do love the physical intimacy and you want to be able to, kind of think about growing old together when
Yeah,
things
dream
start.
building.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's dream building, but it doesn't have to be right here, right now, everything all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
And
see
I
that's
think
that.
that is
and
one
Yeah.
of
I
the
think,
harder things about long distance. If you can't resolve it, and it's kind of like you have to kind of pick a path. It's like either this is going to just be, it is what it is. We're going to travel and see each other when we can, or one of us is moving and we're going to build a life.
yeah,
But I know that I don't know. It's difficult when you're later in life and you're so established and you're and rooted in your
Nobody can
community.
move.
Like
right.
to move is just crazy.
Yeah. And I think, it begs the question of what does it mean to build a life with someone? And do you have to be living together in the same house all the time to build a life with somebody? I know several, people that are either musicians or artists or even, residents, fellows that spend 4 months of the year at a university or 4 months of the year on set, or they're on tour for music and they're gone a lot. And
Yeah.
so you would think they don't necessarily live together, but then they do. They find ways for the one partner to meet them on tour if they're at a close city, or they spend a month together in the summertime. So I think really the question for all of us is what kind of life do we want to build? And what kind of partner do we want to build that with? And where is there the non negotiables? And where is there some flexibility to say, oh, yeah, I could actually get all that I need with a distance relationship. And maybe when we do get closer to retirement, we can think about living either together or 6 months, because our kids are grown, we're doing our own thing, work is slowed down, we work remote. So it's really this idea of what does build a life look like for you?
Yeah. And I think that's ever changing, right?
Hmm.
Like as your
Yeah.
kids get bigger, it's
Hmm.
shifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your feeling on sometimes Melissa and I talk about like people don't casually date in the
Mhm.
lesbian community. It's like when you're with men, you, at least I did, like in college and after college, I dated guys. Like I might have a date one weekend and a different person
Mhm.
I saw 2 weeks later. I never see that. Like I was trying to brainstorm one friend that casually
Mhm.
dates. I can't think of one. Um,
Yeah, it's
what's
definitely
your
less
thought on
common.
that?
I mean, I do
Yeah.
have a few clients who, casually date and are, working to try to find a kind of that person that they want to, maybe make it not casual. But I think part
Hmm.
of it is that there's a lot of what I hear from my friends, and it's like, oh well, I can't. I'm not going to be physical with anybody until I have that deep emotional connection, so I'm
Mm.
going to give a chance. I'm going to date and I'm going to kind of see it through with you and kind of give you my attention and see how we go. And then I'm not going to, maybe have sex with you until I feel an emotional connection, but then I need to give you time to have an emotional connection. So I'm going to stay focused on you and then decide if it does or doesn't work. I think there's
Okay.
also something interesting. Again, we get to the gender piece about this sort of inner narrative or perception that if a woman is casually dating and or having sex with multiple partners, that somehow that's undesirable for a woman. Like that's bad behavior, that you
Yeah.
should be having sex with a bunch of people at the same time. And now I think, again, we've changed our concept of how quickly we have sex after we date. And so that could create a whole bunch of complexities for somebody who has a narrative like, no, you kind of are, I'm monogamous. So I have sleep with one person, but then I'm not in a monogamous relationship. So how do I reconcile my feeling of I'm a monogamous person, but
Yeah.
yet I'm not in a monogamous relationship? So I make monogamous dating, my manifestation of that. And so I'll see it through with one person, one person, one person. But then the hard part is we see it through with one person, intense, love, 6 months, whatever time. And then, like you said, you wake up however many months later and like, oh, darn,
Yeah.
this is
This
not
isn't the one. Now I've
right.
invested six
I'm back
months.
at ground zero. I have to start
Yeah.
over, and so how do I do that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit too about the that therapized language that we have and
Mhm.
how that is kind of like getting in people's heads when they're dating and kind of labeling people a narcissist right out the gate, because they
Mhm.
did one little thing that and I mean, we've talked about this a lot on the pod about, I mean, everybody has narcissistic tendencies and traits, and
Sometimes.
sometimes, you know, um, and kind of getting out of your head in that respect when you're out dating and not just writing everybody off because of one wrong.
Yeah, yeah, I think that, and to back up really quickly about the dating and monogamy, I think it's really important for us to be aware of how we're making sense of things in our own minds, right? And we don't stop. And that's often what I help people do is I'll say, okay, so what does this mean for you? Like if you have two partners, if you're dating, I'm dating two people, what should I do? Should I break it off with one? I said, well, what does it mean to you if you continue to date both? You don't know yet which one you like. What does that mean? Like, oh, well, it means I'm sleeping
Hiding
around with
or,
this, I'm
yeah.
hiding, I'm being untrue to one. It's like, but they both know you're dating, so unpacking like what that inner kind of narrative is for you and what it means for you is really important to then maybe untangle from some of the restrictive stories or even unconscious rules that you have for yourself. Because I think we find that we have all these unspoken rules for ourselves that we don't even know we have. And sometimes those rules are helpful, sometimes those rules are restrictive. And so being aware of those. And, this therapy speak starts to kind of play into that because we're so quick to say, oh, somebody that's a little selfish or chooses themselves as a narcissist, somebody that needs me, is codependent. Somebody that, is trying to tell me what they think I was thinking is gaslighting me. And all
Yeah.
these things are true phenomena, and I don't want to downplay any of those, but it is okay to sometimes be selfish, and we're gonna be. We can make a mistake and be a little
Yes.
selfish. And
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're a diagnosed narcissist. I mean, it's
Right.
not everybody is a narcissist. Your ex is probably not. We can need people and be fulfilled and have our nervous system regulated by somebody else. And that's okay. You're not a codependent, that's okay. That's healthy interdependence. And then you can, maybe say like, but wait a minute, but you did this. And you're like, don't gaslight me. Okay. I'm not trying to gaslight you. I really feel like, so there's no space for dialogue when we latch on to these like diagnoses. And
Yeah.
so we've got to be willing to notice, okay, what am I, making sense of? How am I making sense of this situation? Am I kind of being driven by something that may not be totally true? We come back to like our cognitive distortions. Is my knee-jerk reaction when they're selfish that they're a narcissist? Is my knee-jerk reaction when they kind of need me, or if it's codependence? Is it my knee-jerk reaction when we disagree that it's gaslighting? Because if so, what is that about? Where is that coming from? And how can I create more space to be curious about the situation and hold the discomfort that I'm feeling, right? We feel discomfort. We want to label it, make sense of it, and chalk it up and throw it on the other person, as opposed to staying with that discomfort and say, well, what is this meaning for me? And why am I reacting so strongly?
Yeah. Like get curious.
Yeah, get curious. And it doesn't mean you
Yeah.
don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean you let people, it doesn't mean any of that. Yes to boundaries. Yes to advocating for yourself. Yes to, healthy manifestations of all the things. But it's being curious and cautious about our tendency to just get a little uncomfortable and then write something off and kick it, project it onto the other person. Because
Yeah.
that
Like
all it
just
is
throw
doing is
somebody away.
yeah, it's offloading our own discomfort onto them. But it's not solving
Yeah.
anything. It's not solving anything. We're going to hit the same thing in the next relationship.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. Like we see that a lot in our like community where people just write something happens and it's like they're dead to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just because you have, to your point, you do something selfish doesn't make you a selfish person. It's
Right.
like my kids do things all the time that I'm like, it doesn't make them bad. They just
Right.
had a bad behavior,
Kids are just little narcissists running around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like there's no room to be human.
Yeah.
It's like, even I think with social media, like everything is curated and filtered and perfect, and it's like, and even the extremes, then when you see this extreme vulnerability, it's almost like, oh, that's performative, they're just doing that for views, and so there's no room to be flawed or to have a bad day
Yes.
or to make a mistake, and know that you have the container of our relationship is big enough to hold all of me. I mean, the great parts of me, and there's not so great parts that are going to show up. Can this relationship hold that? Can we as a couple make the space for both of us to do that and figure out how we can make, repair and apologize when it happens, but we're not cast off when we show up somehow flawed.
Boy, this is really hitting close to home right now, Lori. I think I think that bears repeating. Like, I do feel that, like, that cast off, like, is so painful because it's like, there's so much, there's a body of work and one thing happens and it's just like, I don't know, like I've had that happen and it's very, very, it rattles your nervous system.
Yep. When we talk about like trust and intuition, it just makes you feel like you can't trust the container of the relationship.
You can't trust
all
it.
of you.
And then you can't speak up because you're too scared of the thing happening.
Right. So instead you kind of appease, you people please, you just slowly quiet yourself, or you learn how to, put on a happy face when you're not feeling happy because you don't feel like there's the capacity to hold the pain that you might feel or the bad emotions that you might feel. Or if you're drowning, it's like, can I be drowning and still be okay in this space? Can I be sad? Can I be frustrated? Can I be angry? And how can we find a place in the relationship where we can make space for the healthy expression of those negative emotions, as opposed to negativity comes, not doing it, bye-bye, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Because then we're just false harmony, right?
Right. False harmony. It's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think another thing too is like sometimes the ebbs and flows of the relationship, sometimes you are in a sad place or an avoidant place. Yep. And I think it's expected that those kind of things are going to be done with in a day or two, but it could be something that's going on for a much longer time. Mm-hmm. And it gets really difficult to sit in that space for the other person.
Right. Yeah. And I do think it's true. Then the flip side is for that other person to say, okay, I want to hold all that you have, but oh my gosh, like it's been a downer for weeks. And that's where hopefully, if it is that case, the person's getting the support they need. The couple's getting the support they need. They find ways to have little things to look forward to together. They find those moments of joy. They find the moments of connection. That healthy relationship would be able to have conversations about those moments and the dynamics that are happening and say, okay, so what do you need? Thank you so much for supporting me through this. I know I've been kind of lost in my own. What do you need? Can I I want to show up for you, for just a day, and for us to find that in ourselves when we are drowning. Can we still find the ability to show up for the other and to own, hey, I've been down. Like, this has been a tough couple of weeks. Thank you so much for being by my side. What can we do? Like, let's do something fun together. And I think that ownership of that, and then the willingness to connect and recognize, like, thank you for being there. I want to now be there for you, even if it's just for this afternoon, goes a long way to kind of create that connection and that strength.
Yeah, sure. I love that. And it just lets them know I'm aware. I'm not sitting here thinking I'm great. I know I'm not right now. I'm stressed. Right. I've got these things happening. So I love that. Well, Dr. Lorri, thank you so much for coming back on Lesbian Chronicles.
It's so fun. I love this. I love these conversations.
We really appreciate it.
Remind us where people can find more about you.
Mm-hmm. So Instagram and TikTok, I'm on that. My website is just lorrisulpizio.com. So that's got some of my kind of businessy work stuff as well. I'm on LinkedIn as well, kind of with more kind of professional business, like leadershipy stuff. But yeah, that's probably the best way, and would love to connect, and always I try to respond to comments when, if there's questions or whatever. It's difficult, but I try to work through and make sure that, because so many people are offering really great kind of conversation. And I'm just loving being a part of the community, like this lesbian dialogue around these topics. And I didn't find like there was a lot for me when I was like, back in my day, I didn't feel like there was a lot of opportunity, to kind of engage in these kind of conversations in a public way. And so I'm loving it. Like, I'm loving the comments, and the conversation is so fun.
Awesome.
Your content is like perfection. I love it. And it's also like right on time. And you know how Instagram shows you who else likes the same thing? I always notice that, like, well, I like all your stuff, but I notice that a lot of our crew also does. So that's cool. So fun. Yeah, I love your content. Everybody should follow Lorri Sulpizio. It's great relationship stuff.
Appreciate it so much. Thank you, gals. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Bye.
Bye,
Have a good one.
guys.
Take care.